So let's ask you a question. Do you hate Windows ME and how bad it is in your opinion? Most of us hated it, but some of you might like it. Today we are exploring the world's worst Windows version we didn't ask for. Windows ME. I know some of us said the so-called the worst goes to Windows 8 or Windows Vista, but here's the thing. Windows 8 isn't actually that bad. It's stable, however the user interface is the main complaint as it replaces the traditional start menu with the so-called start screen. Windows Vista was also criticized due to its high hardware requirements. Perhaps if we are talking about 2025 that's not the deal, but for 2007 it's pretty high. Since most people at the time uses an older computer which aren't capable of running Windows Vista. Perhaps 2 years later Windows 7 came out. Windows 7 is well received, as the hardware at that time were pretty much capable of handling Windows 7, and Windows 7 refined most Windows Vista's issues while keeping the arrow user interface. So what's the deal about Windows ME? So it might seem Windows ME was alright, but it turns out Windows ME was very unstable due to the fact it's based off Windows 9X. Windows 9X is notorious of being unstable, as they were built on top of MS-DOS. MS-DOS, also known as Microsoft Disk Operating System, isn't designed for multitasking. Windows lets you multitask, but the base isn't designed for multitasking. Perhaps this also explains why Windows 2000 NT-based Windows is much stable than its Windows 9X counterpart Windows ME. So today we are looking back on Windows ME on this computer. Note, this isn't a good sign. We now got memory-related errors. So at this point we noticed big red flags at this point. During the installation we got memory-related errors which shouldn't happen for the first place. That was pretty close. It turned out that some of my devices caused this to happen. Anyways, let's wait for the setup to do its job.
A few moments later.
when I was just a boy. Crisp.
Now we finally finished the install, however we still couldn't get the screen resolution and display color settings configured since we don't have drivers just yet. Alright, I downloaded and installed the right display drivers, so we should be there anytime. Okay, this feels kind of diabolical, but it turns out in Windows 9X you could press the X button so you can use the computer without actually logging in. Okay, now let's try modern browsing. internet doesn't work at all. Even the basic Google searches doesn't load up. Anyways, let's try some games this time. I miss the days when Windows have games pre-installed. It's sad that it was all replaced with useless apps by today's Windows versions. Now for the last part, although it's not a part of my list, it's time for a stability test to see if it will blue screen or not. This allows me to see how stable this OS is. Okay, there it is. So as you guys can see, it was totally toasted. The UI became completely unresponsive to the point you have to force restart to get out of it. I tried the same on Windows XP. In XP it only lags as the RAM was full, but it didn't go completely frozen, but in Windows Me it was almost unusable at this state. I would say it's somehow. The statements against Windows ME was pretty much valid. Yeah, sure, your PC would lag if there are too many windows open, but for this situation it's more than just a lag. So my closing thoughts is that Windows ME being top of MS-DOS was the main culprit of its instability. However, there are also bugs to mention as well. At the first boot after install things were okay, however soon as you started using it as your OS, this is where you'll say no, Windows ME was actually the worst. Anyways, thanks for watching and hope to see you around. Goodbye guys.